I don't think Steph knows it was Christmas, but don't tell her.
We'll cross that out of the recording, shall we?
And we had, can I tell you about, I think it's a funny story about that. We had Ken Reddington called us all down to one end, huge, vast rehearsal rooms we had. And he called us all down one end of the rehearsal room and he said, we've been rehearsing for about 10, 12 days at this point. He said, could you go home and ask your husbands, lovers, partners, and bear in mind we're on the crest of a feminist wave, right, in 1981. Go home and ask permission of your husband's lovers to not shave your armpits or your legs because we wouldn't have a race in the prisoner of war camp. Well, as if we hadn't started to do that anyway, you know. There was this dreadful hush, and Jean Ann Crowley, not backward in coming forward, went, would you like a written letter of consent? And then when we got filming, she got the makeup ladies to make 2 little patches of really thick.
Lovely.
She got there's an OB unit, which is where all the producers sit, and then the camera on us, and she got the camera over and she said, is that long enough for you, Ken?
Well, some of that was actually recorded in the South Coast, or most of it, but the first 2 episodes were actually recorded in Singapore, weren't they? Yes. In the place itself,
yes,
which must have been extremely emotive.
Well, I didn't get there, did I?
No.
So only the rich ones got there. You know, they had a wonderful time. I have to say, I had never laughed so much on a job in my life. I think because it was all women and because the subject matter was so agonising. We had a wonderful woman called Molly who came everywhere with us, who had come out of the camp when she was 14, so she'd gone in when she was 10. And she was very, very little and slightly plump, and she always stood with her handbag, and she'd never sit down, ever. She always stood. And I think it was all that endless training with those Tenko lines from when she was 10 to 14. And I was standing with her so she was acting whenever we needed advice about anything. For example, I was given a banana to eat one day, and I said to her, would you have eaten the skin of the banana? Would you have been that hungry? And she said, no, but we would have eaten the pith from inside the banana skin. Oh, I regretted asking her because we did about 8 takes of this thing. Eat this horrible pith of this banana. Anyway, we were in the studio one day, and she was standing there, and I was there. And the guys, sweet guys playing the Japanese guards, they were all French because they couldn't find anything, walked past in full regalia, and she just went like that beside me, and she went, oh, I'm so sorry, I thought I'd got over it. And then I know, it was such a lesson, because it was just I think what was good about the show was that we didn't have loads of gratuitous violence making it a war film, but we just had that threat of danger, and that little moment with her, I just thought, whoa, what you must have gone through all those years later to still have that kind of reaction. Just instinctive reaction.
Well, the fun to be had. Are you someone who do cry easily?
Oh yeah, I cry, yeah. I could cry now if you wanted me to. No, I do, I cry very easily. Music, a sunset.
You decided early on in your career that you do something which some of us might think that's unusual, and that was you became a prison visitor.
Yeah.
And you visited various prisons, and it led to a meeting with a particular gentleman who became an actor who later you went on to work with, which we'll get to. But what inspired you, first of all, to take up that opportunity?
I worked at Bristol Old Vic a lot in the 70s, and my digs I shared with a probation officer from, I can't remember the name of the prison now, begins with an L, it's an open prison.
Lay Hill Prison.
And she had this particular man in her charge who was in for murder, and his name was Reggie Branton, and he didn't know many women, and she thought it was a very good idea if we became pen pals, because she'd seen his talent in the productions that were doing in the prison. So I became his pen pal for about 18 months, and then I became a visitor. And then they do, when you've done life, you do 6 months. I don't know if the system's still the same, you do 6 months rehabilitation up in Wormwood Scrubs, which was near where I lived. And me and my then boyfriend got his audition speeches up to scratch, and he got into Webber Douglas, and the rest is history.
Indeed. And of course, years later, there you were, with as Rosa, with amazing Italian family. Indeed, yes. Storming your way into Albert Square.
We never crossed, though, you know. We never crossed.
No, it's interesting that happened.
Things come full circle, they do. It's like a kind of little reward, I suppose, I don't know.
Do you keep in touch with him?
No, I mean, we see each other on the circuit, as it were, but it's also a well-known fact that people who have been in prison don't stay, the connections that they've had from them. Has anyone done that? You probably don't put your hand up, but if you have, you kind of completely sever connections, no matter how close the friendships that have been made, because it really is the beginning of a new chapter. So I wasn't in any way, rejected by him, but we just kind of moved into our separate worlds.
Whilst we're chatting, if you do have any particular thing you'd like to say at the time about the programme or whatever, you're more than welcome to ask. Just raise your hand and we can see. And so it's a bit of audience participation. Right, you're more than welcome to do so. Who's an EastEnders fan? Sorry, no.
Fantastic experience.
Yeah, I was thrilled to get it. I can remember sitting, we literally decided, my agent and I, we literally decided that it was time to do a TV series. Because I'd done the Royal Shakespeare Company and Louise Jameson, and it was time to just make myself just a touch more high profile. So I went for Angel. Remember Angel? Yes. And I got down to the last 10 for Purdy. That would have been nice, but who wants Joanna Lumley's career?
But the black leather might have suited you.
And then they saw 60 girls for Leela, and that got down to 10, down to 6, down to 3.
No, it's really cool. I mean, I enjoyed you.
Thank you.
Well, that really, what I can't remember, which doctor was it?
Tom
Oh,
Baker.
Tom Baker.
And we're reprising those roles at the minute for audio for Big Finish. Anybody here listen to Big Finish? Yeah. Big Finish audio. So.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
That was an amazing opportunity. Leela was quite a character too, wasn't she? Yeah. She was out for it.
But I thought
bit of a barbarian warrior, and there were you.
I thought I was going into a kids' TV series. I mean, it's completely naive of me. Of course, if you put someone in a leather leotard and they go on after the football results, there's going to be more interest than you're expecting. I mean, it was a stand. There was one day when they decided to launch the new assistant, as it were, and I was in at 8:30. I've never known anything quite like it before or since. I was in at 8:30 doing a breakfast show or recording something for a breakfast show. Then I had my lunch hour spent with press, and it's the first time I'd had that experience of, all the light bulbs, and you have to just move your face slowly around all of the TARDIS, and you had to step out of the TARDIS. And then I was recording all evening, so it was literally gone from 8:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, absolutely non-stop. And then it was in the papers the next day, and it was a whole different, it's like I'd entered a whole different profession somehow.
And that will stay with you forever, won't it? 14 months, I think, you were with the series itself. Yes. But that's a while ago. But even now, the effect is still there. Conventions around the world. We had mail drops for you today when you arrived at the Arts Centre.
The audio work I'm doing now is all Doctor Who related. I've been invited to Sydney, Melbourne and Auckland this year, Los Angeles next year. It's all Doctor Who related. And I'll be taking my one-woman show over to LA, which I'm thrilled about. So, thank you.
It's all coming together nicely, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's something, as you say, it was a children's type of production. And if you look at some of the monsters, I just got scared stiff one day when I saw this sort of red type of lobster creeping its way across the floor. And I was more scared of this than the TARDIS. And even though I could see the little bit of string that was pulling it, which you could, couldn't you? And at that point, but I was still scared stiff of this thing. There's just something about Doctor Who, isn't there?
Yes. But I think what it does, it just lets you live in another world. It just gives you permission. It's got its rules. It's got its scaffolding set of instructions about how it works, and that within that you can go anywhere, do anything, and it's always moral, isn't it? It's always the good winning over evil. So
It's only recently that we had a kiss.
I'm
Gentlemen.
not sure about the kiss. I'm not sure.
Have you tend to be more than what it's like to work with Tom Baker? Because I know he can be a bit tricky and hard to work with.
God, it's a question that comes up over and over again. As I say, I'm working with him now, and I'm having the most wonderful time. He's an absolute pussycat. He's so... I never thought these words would be coming out of my mouth.
What did it change?
Well, I think he mellowed, you know. I just think he mellowed. He was impossible to work with. He was. But I would never dirt mouth his ability. I think he's incredibly talented, and he was devoted to the programme, and I wouldn't in any way want to knock anybody's respect for that. But he didn't want Leela in the programme. He didn't want the character Leela, and that kind of overlapped into not wanting Leela. So it was just hard. I would have stayed with the programme longer had it been a bit easier, to be honest. But he's very publicly and very gently apologised for the way he behaved, and he had me over to his house for lunch, and we went for a walk, and he's got a forest, going into the forest. Yeah, isn't it lovely? And he makes these kind of wigwams out of sticks. Very eccentric. But I am hugely fond of him now.
And what are these new audios? I mean, they're going to sound like the old days? Or?
Yeah, they are. And in fact, I've read, I've been given 8 to do. I suspect a couple of them should have been to Lou. He's very sadly died this year, for those of you who aren't Doctor Who fans. And the last one, actually, I would love to see on camera. Not with me in a leather leotard, but it's very, very visual. But you know what they do with soundscapes? They say the best films are on radio, don't they? You know what happens with the soundscape? It cannot be underestimated. So I think they're rather special. I think they're rather good. So we'll see.
Is Sam here? Sam, you had a question that you wanted to put?
I'll ask a question actually.
Oh, it's not Sam.
You said that when you started as the new doctor's assistant, you felt a little bit rabbit in the headlights sort of situation, and then you say about the situation at the time where Tom Baker didn't want the character of Leela on there. How have you felt that people's views have changed towards you and or the character of Leela throughout the time that you were on there? Because, as you say, when you go in there, you feel kind of nervous. Is everybody going to like the new character? How did you find it changed at the time you were there?
Well, I think because my first character, the first story was written by Robert Holmes, who for me is still one of the best writers ever for Doctor Who, and because it was directed by Pennant Roberts, who gave me both Blanche and Leela, so I have an enormous amount to be grateful to him for, also sadly no longer with us. I was very well looked after to begin with. It was when the scripts were less connected to Leela's character and used her more as a cipher, you know, the what is it doctor text, then I found it harder to hold on to, you know, everything I was trying to build up with the character. That makes sense?
Did you ever feel that, appreciating at the time when you took on Doctor Who, I think it was about 20, so seeing that role that you played in was one of the very first high profile from a woman's point of view. You had a much higher profile than the previous women assistants. But it didn't, you were almost like a sex doll for spotty-faced teenagers.
I helped many a young man through a difficult phase.
That will be part 2 of our discussion.
2 questions then. One, did you keep the leather gear?
I'm not
And 2, did it offer you the opportunity to do more high-profile roles as the leading lady, or did you get offered the sort of sexy sidekick type role more often?
I don't think I've ever suffered from what's commonly known as typecasting. Because I think this is